You're listening to the Jim Boy Star Podcast, episode 112, titled Dragon Quest VI: The Podcast, guest starring Kenshin 1913. This is Jim, and you're listening to more Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest stuff. Myself and Kenshin 1913, aka Pete, here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
All right. Now, this one is a very long one because we're going to be talking about Dragon Warrior / Quest 6, and it's a one episode, whereas traditionally we've broken up into parts. I guess before we really begin, I do want to remind everyone we are now just a short time away from the return of Let's Discuss Pro Wrestling Albums, as well as the now that's what I call podcasting becoming a bi-weekly show, and the main show for me starting on May 7th. So, Kenshin, Pete, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of Dragon Quest VI coming to the United States and when that happened?
Alright, so Dragon Quest VI was a game for the Super Famicom at first. It came out in Japan in 1995, and it was supposed to come out to America around the same time because I don't know if you collect Nintendo Power back in the day, but there were pictures all over of like, oh, Dragon Quest is coming back. Dragon Quest is coming back, because we haven't seen it since the fourth game, because the fifth game didn't get translated. And then they're like, okay, we're going to bring the sixth game out. And that ended up not happening, and they just scrapped the project. So we honestly did not see Dragon Quest VI until 2011, when it released on the DS, which is a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the only way you could have honestly played it, is if you emulated it. And then there was a guy named No Progress who eventually came out with an English patch so that you'd be able to play it. A couple of things about this game that were first is you have the infinite bag, which you pretty much can collect as many items as you want without worrying about bag space. The other thing was animated monster attacks. So the sprites of the monsters actually moved and attacked and had different animations for all the different attacks that they had, which was very cool. And it was for the first time it was done for every monster, which was it had pretty much updated graphics up to like Chrono Trigger standard graphics, like really, really nice. Had even a better sound to it than even Dragon Quest V, which Dragon Quest V was really good, and they just upped it there. I'm trying to think of what else. They added style. They added job classes. They added a lot of things, which I'm going to talk about. Some things very briefly, because obviously this game's really long, and we only want to do it in one part.
Right, and I really think one of the reasons that is, I want to explain people first. There's actually two. One is because, quite frankly, I don't want to say I don't have the time, but the time's not there with now. That's what I call podcasting becoming the main show in May, and already committing to Let's Discuss Pro Wrestling Albums, as well as the other stuff I committed to. It's just I don't have the spots for Dragon Quest VI to be a multiple episode thing. And also, and this, I guess people are going to probably say this is a big factor, but also one of my least favorite Dragon Quests.
Yeah, I would have to agree as well. It's not one of my favorites either, but I like it, but it's not my favorite.
And it's interesting because there is one part that I like, but because we've done each Dragon Quest / Warrior up to this point, and I'm going to say right now, I'm going to warn people that might be a huge fan of this game, you probably are going to hear some negative stuff from me, because again, not my favorite. And you say that it was, it's interesting because you said that it was the first one that had the infinite bag, but technically if you lived in the States, Dragon Quest VIII came first in regards to that for the States.
I believe it was Dragon Quest VII that ended up having the infinite bag.
Okay, no, you're right, and but I think 8 had it too.
8
But
also had it, yes.
but I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you lived in the States, this wasn't the first time that you've seen this.
No,
Because
no,
you
no,
you
no.
just said it was 2011. When did 7 and 8 come out? Do you remember?
7 came out, I think, in like 2000,
That sounds right.
and Dragon Quest 8 came out maybe like 2008,
Mm.
maybe.
And I'm talking about the States too. That's
Yeah.
that's really what I'm trying to get at. But all right, so let's start with the plot. So go
Okay.
ahead.
So in the beginning, the plot is very interesting, but there's a point which I'll point out to that after a certain part, it kind of like gets very linear. I mean, not non-linear, and kind of like the plot pretty much just fades away for a while until it comes back. So, pretty much how it starts off is very cool. I think it's iconic. It starts off with you. You're this blue-haired hero.
Hmm.
You're laying next to a fire with this yellow-haired girl and this giant guy with a purple mohawk. And you guys are gonna go fight some evil. You don't know exactly what, but you head up to this thing. The girl blows on a flute. You get on a dragon and you fly to the evil guy's castle. So you get to the evil guy, and everybody's talking about how they're kind of nervous about fighting him because it's like he's really strong. His name is Mudo or Murdar in the remakes. So you get in there, and pretty much he just wipes the floor with you. He makes you disappear, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the village of Lifecod or Weaver's Peak, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And you learn that it's all just a dream. So you pretty much go through the motions. You have a sister. Her name is Tanya, and pretty much you live on this mountain, without any worry, on this mountain town with no worries in the world. You go talk to the village elder who wanted to see you. He wants you to go and get the goods. He wants you to sell the village goods down in the town, um, lower to the mountains,
Hmm.
basically called Haggleton.
Right.
And so you end up leaving, and you go down the mountain. Of course, like at this point, you don't have a care in the world. You kind of don't remember what happened, but it's like a weird dream that you had.
Hmm.
So you get to Haggleton. You learn that the guy who you sell your goods, and you have to buy a spirit crown, and the guy who makes those crowns is not even there. So you go to find him, and you find this giant hole in the world. You
Hmm.
rescue this guy, but you fall down the hole, and what ends up happening is you land in a town called Wellshire, which is kind of interesting because no one can see you. You're like a ghost at this point. You're trying to talk to people and figure out what the hell is going on, but you can't figure it out until you overhear some kids talk about like this magic well to the north. So you end up heading in the well, and you warp back to the world that you were at, the original world, and then you go and visit the guy. You get your crown, and you go back to the festival.
Hmm.
From there, you have a festival where your sister is like the I don't know. She's not a sacrifice, but she's like the maiden of the village. So she is going to be like channel the spirit of the mountain goddess or whatever.
Sure. Right.
And she pretty much the whole thing goes without an event until the very end, where the goddess kind of tells you that you have to go on a journey to find to defeat the demon lord, and you're like, what the hell is that?
Hmm.
So the party goes on. It's kind of like bittersweet because it's like you're gonna be leaving. You have this carefree life, and now you're gonna be leaving to journey and do things that are greater. So you head down to this castle, which is south of Hasselton, and it's called now in the what the hell is it called in the DS and Android versions? It's called Somnia Castle,
Right.
which is kind of a play on words with sleeping, because there's insomnia, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of
And
course. I mean, I
yeah,
didn't mind. Well, let me backtrack a little bit here, because so at this point, I agree with you. I like the opening scene of like, oh, we're already fighting what seems to be the big boss, but then was it just a dream, or when I remember when I first played, or did I just see something that's going to happen in the future? What's this? So there was some interest there. And to be honest with you, I did like the aspect of, but it got old real quick for me, where like you were in a town and no one can see you, kind of thing.
Right.
I liked it for the first few seconds, and I was kind of over it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like you said, so now we're let's pick up the story. I just want to give my 2 cents as you continue
Yeah.
on, kind of to figure out at what points did I lose interest in the game itself? Because,
I,
like I
I,
said, I'm not a big fan of the story,
right.
except there's a part towards the end that I really liked.
Right. And I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna take a guess on where you kind of like, eh. I'm gonna take a guess at that, but let's
Okay,
continue.
sure.
All right. So we go into this town. It's called Somnia, right, or Rydok as it's called in the original version. And there you learn that they're recruiting soldiers because they're going to fight Mudo. And so you see this big giant guy with the purple mohawk, and you're like, okay, he looks familiar. So you're all taking a trial in order to find out who's the best candidate out of, like, I think it's like 4 or 5 people.
Mhm.
So you go to this tower. You have to head up the tower. You have to use your wits. You have to use your strength, and you have to fight a bunch of enemies until you get to the top and you talk to the head guard. And after you defeat him in battle, you get an item called the. Well, it doesn't really matter what the heck the item is. Pretty much you get an item which shows that you've actually passed the trials,
Mhm.
and you head back to castle. Now, interestingly enough, in this area, if you screw up the trials enough, someone else will win. I've seen this happen. I've actually had it
Oh
happen to me
wow,
one
I
time.
don't think I even knew
Yeah,
that.
and I'll explain that in a moment. So you get back to the king. The king's like, "Oh, you got this item. Oh, look at that. You're going to be an official soldier." So he's like, "What you have to do now is you have to pretty much, go look and see if anyone needs any help." So you go down to there's an old man in the castle. He's talking about how he always wanted a horse for this carriage he made. So you go out and you go try to get the horse. But at this point, the big dude with the mohawk comes up to you and he's like, "Hey man, I saw you doing some battle in the tower. You seem like a good dude. Let's be friends." So at this point, Hassan, or Carver as they call him in the
Right.
DS version, which I honestly in the beginning didn't like, but now it's kind of grown on me, so I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I like both names. I'm not. This is one of those rare instances that I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with your new name and the old name both at the same time. Even
So
though, if I'm not mistaken, Carver is a pun,
Carver will be a pun, yes,
or
yes
will
it
be a
is.
pun. Okay, all right, got
Yeah.
it.
So he joins your group. So, all right, if you fail the trials for some reason, like pretty much what happens is if you fall out of the tower too many times or you lose a couple times, actually Carver will get the item that you need,
Okay.
and he'll be the soldier, and pretty much he'll be in the place where you're going to go get this horse. So you and Carver go and get this horse at this place. It's like a wild stallion kind of thing. You tame it and you bring it back, and since you got the horse, you what is it? They'll give you the carriage, pretty much the cart and everything. So now you officially have a cart, and then at that point, if you're playing and you've lost the tower, or if Carver is your buddy,
Hmm.
they'll make him a soldier. So either way, you both become soldiers. So what
Okay.
the king wants you to do, and one thing about the king that's kind of weird is he never sleeps, right? So that's kind of odd. And pretty much he wants you to search for the Mirror of Ra. So you kind of hear a couple of rumors, and you head eastward towards this dwarf guy, where there's this really cool scene where he wants a house built, but he can't figure out how to do it. So Carver's like, forget it. You know what? You guys don't know what the hell you're doing. So he just makes this giant house, this like shed for him, without even knowing what the heck he's doing. He's like, I can't believe I did that. It feels
Hmm.
real natural. But he's like, I don't know how I know this.
Right.
So you build that. He kind of tells you that the Dharma Shrine or the All Trades Abbey is to the east, and maybe that's where the mirror is. So you figure out how to get through there, and you get to this All Trades Abbey area, but there's a giant hole there, just like there was in the one before. So you both fall down, and you're both ghosts again. You're in this other world, the lower world, as I'm going to call it for now,
Okay.
and and you're both ghosts, and you can't figure out what the hell's going on. So you find this town. It's called Port Haven, and you find out some things as you're quote unquote a ghost, where they're having some trouble with the mayor, and what's the other thing? A carpenter, his son is missing. These are just a couple of things. They're not really like big into the story, so I'm not going to get into them too much because again,
Sure.
we want to try to save time. So you go over to where, because you hear about Somnia's around. You know, if you catch a boat from Somnia, you can head back. So you're thinking, oh, it's the same Somnia. Okay, we'll go back and we'll get there. So you go into the place where you buy a ticket, and there's the yellow-haired girl that was in the very beginning of the game, and she literally looks at you guys and starts talking to you, and she knows that you guys are ghosts, but she can see them because she used to be a ghost, so she wants you to follow her. So you head outside the town, and she leads you to this place, and by the lady, her name is Madame Luca, and she is a dream seer. Pretty much what that is she can see dreams, and she's kind of like a fancy fortune teller, right? So she was saying that this girl, who they finally give you her name is Millie, or Muriel in the original version. And again, this is one of those times where I didn't really care about the name change. I think
Yeah, that's true. I think
names were fine,
I think I
in my
probably would
opinion.
agree. I think I probably would agree with you for most of these. I'm like whatever. Like I guess I wasn't as mad as I was with previous name changes at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, because they weren't like they didn't end up being like not offensive, but just like
Or
that name
punny.
doesn't. Yeah, that name doesn't feel like it fits the character kind of thing.
Right.
So, pretty much what she wants you to do, Madame Luca, is she wants you to go to this cave to the south to pick up this dream drops. And she said if she can get her hands on that, she can make you a potion and turn you into physical, like you'll be a physical form. So you and Carver and Millie end up going down to this cave. You fight, you beat a boss, you get the item, the lucid what's it called, you get the item, and you pretty much go back to Madame Luca. There, she makes you your potion, and she turns you visible. So now you don't have to worry about people not being able to see you and all that. So after that, you head back to Port Haven, where this one part is kind of a little important. You go to meet the carpenter, right? And the lady, because there's the old carpenter guy and his wife, and they're missing their son. And when you go in, they automatically recognize Carver as their son. But he's like, I don't know who that is.
Right.
I was never a carpenter. I'm a wandering fighter is what his thing is. So they're like, okay, all right, maybe you're not him. So you get a ticket to go to Somnia, and you get to this place, and you find out it's not exactly the same Somnia that you came from in the beginning. Apparently, the king and the queen have fallen ill, and you can't go and visit them because the guards are guarding it. But there's one guy in town who's like, dude, you look, the blue-haired guy, you're the main character. He's like, you look just like the prince. Maybe if you had fancy clothes on, you could be the prince. So at the shop, you can actually buy some fancy gear. You equipped it, and then that kind of fools them into thinking that you're actually the prince. So at this point, you go and visit the king and queen, and you find out they're both asleep, and they're both dreaming.
Now is this again? Because this is where I can already feel like my frustration with the story just in reliving the description, because I'm very confused. So are we in the real world or that other world? What are we?
We're in the lower world, which is the real world. Yes.
Okay, so we're in the real world where we started the game after what might have been the dream.
No, the dream.
Oh, I'm getting too far. I'm getting too far ahead. Okay, that's fine.
No, I'll explain it when we get
That's
there.
fine.
Don't you worry,
Right.
Jim. All right, so you find out they're both dreaming. The king is dreaming of Mudo, and he's like, I gotta get rid of Mudo, 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 Mudo. And then the queen is dreaming about the Mirror of Ra, Mirror of Ra, Mirror of Ra. So that's kind of shady. So what ends up happening is, of course, the Chancellor of Somnia, he's a big dick, as some chancellors in the Dragon Quest games end up being. He
Right.
kicks you out. He and pretty much doesn't let you go back. So you hear about there's a tower to the north called the Mirror Tower, and you have to go there because that seems like the best place to find the Mirror of Ra. But you need the key in order to get into the tower. You hear about this town called Amor, which has the mirror key. So you head there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You talk to everybody there. They kind of say how back in the day it was stored in a cave, and what ended up happening is these two bandits went into that cave, and only one of them came out, and she might know where the key is. So you go and talk to her. She pretty much says, "Oh yeah, back in the day, you know, me and my buddy went up there, and we ended up getting a key or finding something, but I have terrible dreams about it." So she's like, "Hey, do you want to go and sleep in the church? Because the inn is full." So you go to the church, and basically what you do is you fall asleep, and you wake up, and you go outside, and then there's like a huge waterfall in this town. It turns red, and everything, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the water's terrible. Oh my God!" So you head north, and you go into the cave, and you find this bandit lady whose sword is red, and she's like, "I can't wash the armor. Oh, I can't wash the blood off the sword. What's going on?" Kind of reminds me of Macbeth a little bit when Lady Macbeth's like, "I can't wash the red off my hands." Or whatever.
Right. Okay.
So you head through this cave. You find the other bandit guy who the woman bandit thinks that she killed, and he is fighting a monster. So you kill the monster, and you reunite the two bandits. And what ends up happening is the treasure that's at the end of the cave you don't end up getting because the bandit already took it. So what ends up happening is you go back to the town more, and you go back to sleep, and you wake up and you meet the old lady again, but she wasn't in the other town. And this is where you start to learn that you can actually jump between the two worlds by like going to sleep in certain areas.
Okay.
So where you were was the upper world.
Oh, so that's what we're gonna do now. Okay, so we're doing upper world and what, downward world?
Yeah, I'm gonna call it the upper world and lower world for now
Okay.
until a certain point, and then it'll be more clear.
And to be clear, so what did we start at the upper? We started at the upper world, right?
Right.
Okay.
We started at the
Okay.
upper world and we fell down to
So
the lower
right
world.
now, for right now, we are where we originally started at the beginning of this.
Right, and you find out
Okay.
that you know you had a dream. The old lady had a dream, and she's like, "You guys were in my dream, and you rescued that guy." And then the guy comes in. Of course, both of these people are very old. They ended up being the bandits that you helped out that were young. And so what ends up happening is the old guy gives you the key that he found to go to the mirror tower. So you're like, "Oh right, sweet."
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you head over to the tower, the mirror tower, where you go up and you have to do a series of little obstacles. But inside this tower, there's a red-haired girl who is invisible, just like you guys were when we fell through the holes. And right now we're in the lower world, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So you meet this girl. She's invisible. You can actually talk to her. She's very surprised that you can, and then you give her the potion so that she can actually become visible again, and she joins your party, which is pretty cool. Now her name is Ashlyn in the remake versions, and her name is Barbara in the regular version. I kind of like Barbara a little bit just because I've never heard Ashlyn before.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's not too bad of a name. So what I'm happening is you go through here, you get the Mirror of Ra. Finally, you can head back. Now, once you have the Mirror of Ra, if you're playing the DS version or the Android version, if you go back to Madame Luca at this point, you can actually get you learn the spell of Zoom, and if you already have it, you can switch between worlds, which is really, really, really useful.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that for the original game, which sucks because then you have to keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then you head back up to the upper world. The upper world.
I do have a question though. So
Yes.
because you mentioned how Zoom works for both upper and lower world, but
Mhm.
what if there's a case that there's the same castle/town? How is that differentiated?
I forget how it's done in the Super Nintendo version, but they'll have a thing where you could switch worlds, and then from there you could pick the other towns.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of equivalent to like if you like in Legend of Zelda Light World, Dark World, that
Right.
you could just like how you could have used your bird to go to different places in one, but you couldn't use it for the other. Like that's how they separated it or whatnot.
Yeah.
Although
Yep.
I think you could still use it. Whatever. All right, go ahead.
So we go back to the upper world where we go back to Rydok, and we use the Mirror of Ra on the king. Actually, we don't really use it. He looks at it and he's like, and he pretty much turns into a woman. And you find out that this woman is actually the queen of Somnia, not the queen. Not, this is where it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, this
She,
is okay.
you're like, what the hell's going on? This man, this king, is actually a woman, but it's not even a woman. It's the queen of Somnia in the regular world. It's her like other self or something. It'll be explained. I'm gonna explain
Right, and
everything.
here's in my mind where okay, here's where I can like here the biggest issue I think that I had with this game, and this doesn't really spoil anything. It's kind of just an ongoing trait. Is it's not very clear to I remember it not being very clear to me what you're kind of supposed to do. Like they
Right,
give you bullet points, and I get that some people in the gaming world are like, well, that's what made it cool. But like, I think to me, there's a point where yeah, there's a line where it becomes cool, where it's cool, but like then when you're spending so much time just trying to figure out, then that's when I start getting like, this
r-
this shit.
right.
All right, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally get what you're putting down
And it
because
definitely gets worse later on too.
oh yes, it does. It gets a lot worse. Like right now, it's still kind of like okay, you know what you're doing. This part I still like a lot.
Mm.
Some parts I get confused at it, but I'm like okay, I'll go with it. So the female lady says the female queen pretty much says okay, we gotta go defeat Mudo. So apparently Mudo is in this place called the Underkeep that's in the upper world. So you go there. It's a little difficult to get through, and you pretty much fight your way through, and you get to Mudar or whatever Mudo, and you fight him. He's pretty tough. You defeat him, and then you use the Mirror of Ra on this guy, and what ends up happening is he turns into the king. Now he turns into the king of Rydok or Somnia, and pretty much he is the king in the lower world. Okay,
Okay.
so you go back to the cat. He pretty much says, "Okay, me and her are gonna meet you back at the castle." You go back to the upper world Somnia castle, and you're like, "Oh, why the hell aren't they here?" And then you eventually figure out, okay, they're in the other Somnia. So pretty much you release them from their dreams. You know what I mean? Their nightmares that they had, similar to what you did with the old lady. So you head back to the lower world Somnia, where the king tells you about like how he tried to go and defeat Mudo in the real world or in the
Okay.
lower world. He tried to defeat him, but he cast a spell that put him to sleep, like it was like a curse or whatever.
Sure.
So
Some
he's
Sleeping Beauty stuff right there.
yeah, so it is. It's very similar. So he pretty much says that the people of Ghent have a because Mudo lives on an island and he has no more ships to help go there, so you could go to defeat him. Because of course he asked you to go and defeat him. Of
Right.
course. So pretty much he says the people of Ghent to the north actually have this really amazing ship, but they're very holy people, and you have to kind of get like their permission. If they give you that ship, you can go to Mudo and you can go defeat him. So what ends up happening is you head to Ghent, you talk to the elder there, who's like, we're not giving you this boat. It's a badass ship. I'm not giving it to just anybody. So apparently there's a really famous like priest there. His name in the original version is Chamorro, and in this version it's Nevin. Which honestly, I like Nevin more, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for whatever reason, the names are not bothering me here. And although part of me wonders if the reason why it's not bothering me about them, not bothering me, is because my standards for this game is not high.
Yeah.
Whereas like I care so much that fucking Gabba was changed to rough for
Right,
Dragon
right, right.
Quest VII, because
Yeah,
I like that might be a factor in this, because even the main bad guy here is kind of a pun that I'm kind
mhm,
of letting slide, like it
mhm.
Murdaw, like
Yeah,
murder,
murder. Yeah,
Murdaw, because it's
yeah,
spelled Murdaw.
yeah. And yeah, it's kind of weird. Actually, you know, again, like, you know, I remember when we were talking about Dragon Quest IV, and you were like, I hate when they named them like Laurel and Hardy,
Yeah,
and
fucking Laurel.
that's like one of your favorite games, so I totally get that too. I get why you might be like, that's all right with the name
Yeah.
changes and everything.
I'm not invested as much, I guess. That's what it is. Because you know what? I didn't even like the cave song, really.
Yeah, the
Um,
Cape song's a little
I was
weird.
like, it's because it starts off like da 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 da, and I'm like
Yeah,
I don't know why I never liked that the cave song for this game.
I always thought that the tower theme in the original version was like really loud and blaring for some
I don't
reason.
remember the tower theme as much for some reason. I'd have to listen
Luckily,
back to it.
luckily they lowered the volume a lot in the remakes, and they made it like, okay, I can listen to this, but before it was like bum 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 bum, and it's like, all right, calm down, lower it a little bit.
Come on, we're not
Yeah,
at the final boss yet.
yeah,
Tone it
yeah, yeah,
tone it down there, Mister.
yeah. So we in Ghent we meet the elder, this famous like up and coming priest named Nevin. He's the elder's son, and pretty much he gets like a vision from God or whatever. You know, the same spirit that saw us in the very beginning of the game and says you have to help them. These guys got like a big destiny ahead. So all of a sudden they do like a 180, and he's like, okay, I'll help you guys. And so you go and you go to this giant ship called the Providence, which let me keep track because I did figure it out. This is the first. This game does have I believe, the most travel methods.
Okay.
So, anyways, so the number one here is the Providence.
Okay.
It's this big ship, and it sails you off to Mudo's island, where Barbara or Ashlyn end up staying. So she doesn't join your group, but Nevin actually joins your group at this point, and he's very good. He's a healer. So at this point, most of your characters don't really have a lot of abilities, right? You're working on
probably yeah.
you're working on very slim abilities. Like the hero has heal and sap and zoom, and that's pretty much it. Carver might have like a couple, maybe one or two physical abilities at this point. Millie has a couple of spells, and then Nevin has a couple of healing spells. But you're really not like very, you're not very skilled in a lot of abilities at this point. And I think they did that for a reason, because this next part is fairly challenging. So Ashlyn stays back. Nevin joins your group. He has this item called the Staff of Ghent, which pretty much is a heal more spell or mid heal spell. Constantly, you can use it all you want. And so you go through this area, and then finally you get to this familiar area where you have a campfire, and it pretty much plays out almost similar to the very beginning of the game, where you're sleeping. Millie is near the fire. Nevin is there this time. And then Carver jumps out and he's like, okay, I scouted the area, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, it's like really serious case of deja vu. And you head up again and you talk to Millie. She blows the flute, and she even mentions this feels very similar, like we've done this before. So you get on the dragon. It flies you to Mudo's castle. You get in Mudo's castle. You fight all the nastiness that's in there, and you finally reach Mudo. And what ends up happening is he tries to use the same spell that he used before on you, and he pretty much zaps you away again. Mm-hmm. So you end up back in what's the name of the town? Lifecod or Weaver's Peak. You end up back in Weaver's, and you notice though this time that you still have the Mirror of Ra. So you end up looking at the Mirror of Ra, and boom, his spell is broken. And you're back in Mudo's castle. So there you fight Mudo, which is a really, really difficult battle because it's two back-to-back battles. It's very tough. You end up beating him, and then pretty much he says that he was a Dread Fiend. He was one of these Dread Fiends, and there's a whole bunch of them. And he's like, you might have destroyed me, but there are other ones around. So he is defeated totally. And you honestly, at this point, I was like, man, is this the end of the game?
Yeah,
this
right.
Is short.
Yeah.
This is short. And what ends up happening is you pretty much go back to Somnia and you learn that the world above is the dream world, all right? And
Mm-hmm.
that is where anyone from the below, when they have dreams, they're brought up there. Like if they have like a dream of like I want to be a famous merchant and I want to have all this stuff and like have a city where there's a bunch of like trading. He dreams it and then boom, up in the dream world it happens. So they pretty much Somnia, the king of Somnia, wants you to find because he and his wife believe that you are the prince. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention when you're in Mudo's castle. This is really important. I
Mm-hmm.
almost forgot this. So you get to this point in his castle where Carver meets up with this statue that looks like him, and he goes into he like fuses with the statue and he learns this really amazing ability. But the big thing about that is you learn that he was actually a dream. The guy that you've been traveling with this whole point was a dream of him because he actually was the carpenter's son. And he always dreamed of becoming a warrior, a wandering warrior, and that's why. But he still remembers like everything that all the adventures that you had up to this point.
Right.
But he had these aspirations of being a famous like wandering warrior, and so pretty much that's kind of like how it makes sense. Like if you dream you're this, you could be this in the dream world. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
So I think this is a good time to kind of recap where we are because what we just said was a lot, and I think it's a good time
Yeah.
to recap. So again, so now the upper world is the dream world, right?
Right.
And the
Yes.
lower world is the real world.
Right.
And under what you're explaining, the 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 queen wanted to be a man, or vice versa.
The queen wanted the mirror of Ross really badly, so I guess she dreamed that she was the ruler of the dream world Somnia, so that she could have the people look for the
Okay,
mirror
so
of
that's
Ross.
why she dreamt that she was the king.
Right, and then the
Okay.
the king dreamed so much about
Because wait,
defeating.
hold on, because in the dream world there was no queen.
In the dream world, there was no queen. That is correct.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense. Okay.
Yes, and then the king of Somnia dreamed so much that he wanted to defeat Mudo that in the dream world he became Mudo. He became the dream world Mudo.
Now that doesn't make. How are you defeating him by becoming him?
I don't know. He just kind of like transformed into him, and then you use the mirror on him, and boom, he's the king again.
Yeah, so here's where I have one, like, probably at this point, remembering playing this game, is where I probably have 1 foot out, kind of. Like,
Right? Yeah.
I'm not fully out of this game, but
Yeah.
it's getting
Actually,
close to me.
this is where the point where I'd figure that you might be like almost like because it does get very non-linear at this
And I
point.
also think I just have a thing against games that have the main story of dreams, although I did like Little Nemo the Dream Master, but
Right.
I want to reference more like currently one of the things that I played the demo for Final Fantasy 15, I think it was,
Hmm.
and that looked like it was a some kind of weird dream kind of thing, and I was like, now I just don't have an interest. And
Yeah.
also, I would say probably not my least favorite, but one of my not so favorite Kingdom Hearts games is Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, which is all about like kind of these dream worlds that are happening. So
Hmm.
maybe it's just that. Maybe I have a bias against things that have story based on dreams. I can't think of any other ones that I can put this to the test, but of the ones I mentioned, I think those are good examples.
Yeah. 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 It's just kind of weird. Like I always figured like the Super Nintendo games always tried to do that thing where we've got two worlds. If you look at Legend of Zelda, it had the light world, the dark world. Like Final Fantasy, it had the Final Fantasy 6 had the world of ruin and then the
Mm.
world of balance. It always seemed like they tried to do the two world thing.
See, and but I think that's one of my biggest problems with this game is that okay, let's compare this to let's say again, I'm gonna go with like Legend of Zelda because a lot of people know that a light world and a dark world. There's like a lot of things that are very distinguishably different, whether it's the song, whether it's the look, whether it's something different about the people, like me, stuff like that.
Hmm.
My problem with this one is nothing is really that different. Yes, I guess, there's probably little things here and there, but not enough where I'm like, yeah, this is an entirely different world.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah, and I
maybe
get that.
if the song, maybe even if the song was different, like, because I don't think it changes. If you
It's
were,
a very the dream world is a variation of the theme in the bottom, but
Mhm.
they're very similar to where you're like, if I just listened to it, I couldn't tell the difference. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, like, because again, Legend of Zelda, you think like there's a distinct sound with the dark
Yes.
world and the light world, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so so who's a dream and who's not at this point in our party?
Okay. So right now,
And who don't
um,
we know? Because some people, I guess, we don't know.
right, at this point, the hero is a dream apparently.
Okay.
Eh, Um, Carver is a real person again. He is a whole person. Millie, I'm not 100% sure on, and I'm going to discuss this with you a little bit later
Sure.
on what. And then Nevin is a real person. He never was part of the dream world, and Barbara is a dream person right now.
Okay.
So, pretty much the queen and the king pretty much say, you know what, you are more than likely our son because of what with Carver, with the thing that happened with Carver. You're probably our son, and so we want you to go out and find yourself, which is like
That just
a
seems like.
big thing. I mean, and
But
what?
it also seems like something like your parent would like say to someone that's just growing up. Yeah, I just want you to find your place in the world.
Yeah, it's like it's like the hugest task because this doesn't happen, by the way, till way later in the game. Way later that you actually find yourself, like
Right.
way later. So it's just crazy. So, pretty much what happens is the reason why there are these giant holes in the dream world is because the Dread Fiends, there's a few of them, they pretty much have sealed off that part of the world. So after you defeated Mudar or Mudo, you pretty much have released all trades Abbey. So you head there in the real world, still finding that it is a ruin. It's destroyed.
Mhm.
It was destroyed in the real world. So you have to head to the dream world where it actually is.
So okay,
Now,
so time out here.
yes.
So are you telling me then that locations can have dreams?
Right, yes, because I guess it's sort of like ghosts in the essence of like, okay, all these people died, but their spirits sort of still linger, so they hang out in the dream world,
Okay.
kind of thing. It's weird. It's very weird. And one of the reasons why the Dread Fiends are trying to get rid of certain places is because they give power to the humans, and they don't want the humans to have certain powers so that they can defeat the main
Sure.
bad guy, their boss, pretty much.
Do
You know
we
what I
know
mean?
the boss name at this point?
The boss? No, we do not know the boss's name yet. We only
Uh,
know that there's more Dread Fiends out
right,
there.
that's all we know. Okay.
So we head back to All Trades Abbey or Dharma Shrine, and here is the first taste. I'll go into it very quickly. Pretty much, it's the first taste of job classes.
Sure.
Now this hangs out for Dragon Quest VI and Dragon Quest VII. Dragon Quest VIII kind of does it a little differently.
Yeah.
So how it works is you go in there, you get a different job class. There's like 8 main job classes, and then there's a hybrids. Like as you learn different ones, you can learn better ones, like a battle master. Like you can learn a fighter and a warrior, make a battle master, or a sage is a cleric and a wizard, and that makes a sage. And then the way that you pretty much, and this is how you gain abilities. This is how you gain extra stats, and pretty much you can the way that you learn like abilities and everything is each class has a certain amount of battles that you have to go through in order to like go up each level. There's
Right.
8. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't want to explain everything just
Yeah.
because we don't have the time.
By the
But
way,
you-
I do want to throw out in the new Dragon Quest VII, remake that came out recently. I think they did a much better job with the progression of job classes.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little difficult to do it at first because you can't just fight the easiest monsters. Like
Right.
each area and this happens in Dragon Quest 7 too. Each area has like a job level cap. So you can only like if the cap is like 15 or something, if you're on level 16 or higher, you cannot gain any job like battles. You can't gain any job class that way. You have to actually
Mm.
find another area. So it can be tricky, but there are places on the internet where you can find out where things are and whatnot. So pretty much at this point, you can pretty much make your characters whatever classes that you want. You can make
Well,
uh,
what is your choice of class, real
it,
quick?
okay. So
Who would you like if you had to change everyone right now going forward? What do you have?
so in the very beginning, I would have the hero. He would be a warrior. I would have Carver be a martial artist. He's pretty much like it's kind of similar to Dragon Quest 3 with with the classes you could pick there. Like the warrior, he could. Well, actually, they don't deal with equipment. One thing I do like about this game and even Dragon Quest 7 is that each character could still equip whatever the hell you want. So you can make a mage have heavy armor.
Mm.
It doesn't really matter. So the warrior pretty much gets like all these really cool physical attacks. The martial artist is very quick. He can do a lot of criticals. Um, and then I make Barbara. I make her a mage because or Ashlyn. I'm sorry. I make her a mage because she's already like very magical. She's probably the best magic user in the group. Then I make Muriel. I make her a dancer because I have her eventually become a superstar or a luminaire, which is like a upgraded dancer that learns the hustle dance, which is really really good. And
Mm.
then Nev and I have him learn cleric or priest because he's pretty much already on that path, and if he can learn more healing spells faster, it's all good.
Yeah.
So I think that's everybody. So you go to All Trades Abbey, you get your job classes, and then this is the first time in the game you head back to the lower world, and you now have control of the boat that you got in Ghent. And from there you can actually go to an optional area where you can get an optional character, which is pretty cool because I think this is one of the only first times that you can actually do that in a Dragon Quest game is get an optional character and like they stay in your group forever. And you pretty much go to this town, you hear about this beast that's there and he's troubling everything, but you also hear about a guy named Amos who is the town hero. So you find out, you talk to Amos, you go to sleep in the inn, you wake up in the middle of the night, you meet this monster, you fight the monster, you find out that the monster is Amos,
Hmm.
and you have to figure out how to save him, like how to stop him from turning into a monster. So you head north, you find out, you hear some stuff through the town, you head north, and you get yourself a an item there, what the hell is it called? A seed, some sort of seed, a sanity seed or something like that,
Okay.
and you head back. You give it to Amos, and he turns into a monster, but he can automatically do that somehow. So he can actually, after eating the seed, he can actually tame the monster within or whatever. It's kind of cool,
Yeah.
and at this point he joins your group, so it's pretty cool. You got this optional character. You don't have to recruit him if you don't want to.
Right.
And
Yeah. You don't have to do anything. You could just keep
right,
going. Yeah.
right. And so this is probably going to be no. There's two more parts of the story, which I'm going to probably go into detail a little
Okay.
bit more, and then I'm just going to kind of just briefly tell each point because at this point it's still a little linear, but eventually becomes you go wherever
Right.
you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
So the next area we go to is Arkbolt. It's this castle, and the first thing you see is this blue swordsman come out, and he has a coffin with him. And so what you have to do is apparently they're having trouble with monsters, and they need people to go and fight monsters. But they have this giant like testing that you have to go through. So you have to defeat like four different soldiers in order to actually be able to do this quest because they want you to be able to defeat the monster in the cave. So you have to go through this one guy, then you have to go and attack these two other guys, then you have to fight the captain who's pretty tough. All during this point you're still like learning jobs. So it's in the very beginning it can be tough to do.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you go to this cave because you finally get your coffin, and you go to this cave and you go down and you meet the blue warrior, and he pretty much fights off this giant dragon with an axe, and he just beats him single handedly. Like there was no way you were going to be able to defeat this monster, because he never even gave you the opportunity. So you head back. All right, this quest kind of leaves like a bitter taste in your mouth because you're like, what the hell did I go through all this stuff to do, and I'm not even gonna get a treasure or anything like that.
Right.
Because then as you go back, the blue-haired, or I keep saying blue-haired, the blue warrior, who you find out his name is Terry at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You find out Terry ends up getting the prize, which is the Sword of Thunder, and apparently he's looking for the strongest sword ever. He's looking for the legendary sword. So you go to the king and you're like, what gives? How come we don't get anything? And he's like, nah, you don't get anything. This cave now you can actually go through. So you go through the cave and you head up these stairs that lead to the upper world, which I find hilarious because I wonder how far apart are these two worlds that you could just walk up there with stairs.
Yeah, exactly.
And the funny thing about that is in the remake versions, they actually have party talk, which
oh yeah, does anyone question that in the party when you get
Yes,
there?
they do.
Good, I'm glad.
I think Amos or Millie says something about like, oh man, I can't believe we just walked up all those stairs. That is, and they're like huffing and puffing, and like, holy God. So you get to this desert town in this area. Now we're in the dream world, by the way.
Okay.
You get to the desert town, and
So
they're all talking.
but it also brings up a good point. Sorry, but if I knew that was the case, I would probably like right before going up those stairs, take a quick nap.
Yeah.
And then like put shit that I need in my mind, and then that way they'll just appear right after I walk up the stairs.
Yeah. It is odd too because like, to go from the dream world to the real world, most of the time you're going down wells. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird how that happens, but like if you want to go up to the dream world, you walk upstairs. It's like, where's the giant rope I can climb or something like that? I don't know what would be worse.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the weirdest. Why is this one of the ways that you can travel to another world? It's like similar to this show Once Upon a Time, where at one point they had someone go to another world via tracking spell, and it was the underworld where people died. Or are dead, and I was so mad about that. This is almost as absurd as that to me.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right, so we're in the desert town called Arida, and pretty much everybody there is talking about the land of happiness. The land of happiness, pretty much they all want to go there because apparently it's this great thing. So after you talk to everybody there, it ends up becoming nighttime, and nighttime is when the land of happiness comes. So you go over to this floating island, and you're pretty much like along for the ride. You want to see what this is all about, but you kind of get like you're feeling like this is weird because like all the people who are serving everybody drinks, it's very odd. So you get a couple of drinks and you pass out, right?
Can't hold your liquor. Go ahead.
Can't hold your liquor. You fall asleep and you wake up, and it's monsters. All the waiters and the bartenders and everything and the waitresses were all monsters. So they take you up north to this giant castle where all these monsters are preying or whatever on and to destroy all these humans that are over here.
Mm-hmm.
So you meet the next Dread Fiend, which is kind of weird because there's not really a big build-up like there was for Mudo.
Right.
And then the other Dread Fiend, his name is Jameris. So you take him on, you fight him in this castle, and you defeat him, and it unlocks another area. Like, as you defeat him, like, he disappears, and then you see a bunch of spirits fly off.
Okay.
And you don't really know where like the hole is filled up. You just know that you filled up another hole. So you head back with this island, and the people say, you know what, you can keep it. So this is our second mode of transportation. We have boats.
Oh, very good. Okay, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so we have boats on both the real world and the dream world. Although I do like the dream world one because how many times can you say you get to travel on a floating island? That's pretty damn cool.
Right. Boats on boats on boats.
So this is honestly, if I had to take a guess on where you probably said, I'm done with this game, I think honestly at this point you would probably be like, I'm done. Because
I think I leaned a little bit, but no, not yet. I think I know. I think based on what I'm remembering as we're going through this, I'm starting to remember where it is, even though I did eventually finish the game.
yeah, well, here's the reason why I would assume that maybe this was the point. Because after this point, both worlds are open to you, but there is no direction on where to go.
That is
They
true.
don't. There's no clue on where else to go. And see, the thing is, I don't mind if there is like a lot of like, okay, you got to find it yourself. But there should be some people in some of the towns talking about something
Yeah.
of where you could possibly go next. But there's hardly any of that.
I shouldn't have to go to a walkthrough or YouTube video every 10 minutes.
Right, and I remember this part was where I got lost so bad. There was like 2 videos of my original Let's Play where I was like, I don't even know where the hell I'm going.
And you kept it in. You were like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep these episodes in while I wander around.
Well, I didn't. See, the thing is, I did end up collecting some treasure, but there's so much treasure hunting to do in this game that it's like, oh my god. So you find out that that first hole that you fell in. You remember way back in the beginning of the game when we fell down that first hole.
Yes.
And we went to that one town. That hole is now filled up with the mini Metal King. So just like every Dragon Quest, or at least from 4 on, the mini Metal King is there, and he pretty much gives you items based on how many mini medals you have. And the reason why he was sealed up was because the Dread Fiends were worried that the gear and all those cool items that you get through there was would be like detrimental to their boss, so they sealed him away. So at this point, you can do a lot of treasure hunting, and at this point, I'm just going to kind of lightly touch what we do next because there's a lot of busy work to do. So the next point is pretty much you go to a castle, you find out about this cowardly prince, and you have to help him go through a baptismal thing. He runs away like 8 times. It's crazy. You just gotta keep going back for him and getting him and back and getting him and getting him and getting him. It's a real pain in the ass. The item that we get for that is the magic key, where now we can actually go around again and do more treasure hunting. There's a lot of shit going on.
I mean, I would say you would do that one first then, so that way you don't have to come across like doors or chests that need a magic key and you don't have it yet. Like that's the first one that you should probably do.
Right. And so from there, that town is called Howsworth or Howl Castle. And so from there, they kind of mention there's a shrine to the south where you can go, and you can go into the dream world. From there, there's a shrine. So from that shrine, we head into the dream world, where we go into this other what is it? We go into this other town where you pretty much find out about a flying bed, and you hear a lot of stuff about a flying bed, and then eventually you head. I think there are stairs. I'm not 100% sure. You find something where you head back to the real world, and you pretty much see this same castle or the same town again. And you find out, I said town. Anyways, you find out there's this kid. He died. His parents, they're sad. They're called what the hell is their name? There's a pun. I'm not gonna get their name. Whatever. It's a pun.
It's a pun.
And,
there's always a pun with this fucking series.
Yeah. So they want. What ended up happening was there was a guy who came into town. He said he was going to get something for this kid. The guy never got it. The kid died. And pretty much what you're going to have to do is climb up this giant mountain, this cliffside, to get it. So you climb up the cliffside. You get this item. You give it to the parents. You sleep in the kid's bed, which is very weird, creepy, I think. You sleep in the dead kid's bed. You get warped from the dead kid's bed. You get warped back to the dream world, where the kid tells you, I'm not afraid anymore because I'm dead and I can still fly whenever I want.
So who dreamed him?
I think he was the spirit that just hung around in the dream world.
Okay.
Like there's a point.
This is what I mean. This is what annoys me about the story.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird, and pretty much there's a point in this area where you're talking to you're in the dream world, and you're talking to this guy who's hanging out near a grave near where the dead kid is. his house,
Mm-hmm.
and he says something about like, "Oh, my master, I miss my master," all that, and then you head to the real world, and it's the dog. It's weird. It's really weird. And like another little quick case from this thing is
Sure.
there's a guy or something that he dresses up as a woman, and then he's a woman in the dream world, but in the real world he's like a cross dresser or something like that.
Well, all right.
It's really weird. It's really weird.
Trying to get. Oh wow, this is a game ahead of its time, fighting for those kind of rights.
Yeah, in some cases I think so. So now the kid's like, okay, I'm gone. I don't need this flying bed. You can have it. So boom, here's our third mode of transportation, the flying bed. But the only drawback is you can. Well, there's two drawbacks. You can't fly over mountains, of course, or hills.
What? Wait, hold on. Why? Of course. It's a bed.
I don't know why it
should
doesn't go any higher.
Over? Should it go as high as you want it to be?
It should. It should be, but I guess it's more like a hoverboard.
It's just bullshit. By the way, this is when I think I was out with the fucking flying bed.
Yeah, it's like Little Nemo in a way, but yeah. So it's like a hovering bed, and it doesn't, and you can't use it in the real world. So we have 3 modes of transportation at this point. And with the bed, you actually head to another castle, or a well that heads you to a castle where there's this king. There's a princess in a mirror, and you pretty much have to show him the mirror of Ra, and you see like this evil guy in this mirror because of course the prince in this castle fell in love with the princess in the mirror, of course, right?
Okay.
Of course, right?
Wait, okay, let's rewind because I'm having a look because I vaguely remember this. Okay, so you're in the real world right now, right?
Right, we're in the real world.
The name is a prince.
Yes, the name of the castle is Swanstone.
Okay. All right, so there's a prince there. There's a girl in a mirror. That's right, and isn't she claiming she's trapped in there or something?
Yes. So it's famous for having a princess in a mirror. So pretty much what happens is the prince wants to figure out a way to get her out of there, but when you show the mirror of Ra, you see like this evil wizard behind her, and like that's the reason why she can't get out. So you talk to this now.
I remember this.
You talk to an old man. I believe he's in a well to the north, and he pretty much says, "I dream of a big tower in the middle of the desert, and that's where the evil wizard is." And so you're like, okay.
So he's the cause of the problem then.
I don't know.
Because if he didn't dream it, then it wouldn't affect the prince.
No, I that's a good question because I think he's just dreaming of the place. Maybe that old wizard guy's been there before, been there forever.
I like weird that we're finding all of the plot holes for Dragon Quest VI. All right, so we go into this in the dream world now to this place that's someone dreamed up. This old man dreamed up.
Yes.
And then and we go. I remember for some reason I remember this being hard. I don't know why, but eventually you get in. Good.
The boss could be a little tricky, but yeah, it's this tower in the middle of the desert, just like the guy dreamed. Mm-hmm. So you're in the dream world. You find the tower. There's a special way to get through the tower, which you have to use the spell peep or whatever. Mm-hmm. I forget what it was in the original version, but you couldn't just go there. There was no you could go there originally after you got the flying bed, but you would have no idea how to get in the tower. So pretty much you go up the tower and you meet the wizard. The wizard's like, I'm not letting go of the princess. She's mine. And so you fight him, you defeat him, and you head back to Castle Swanstone, where the princess finally is able to get out of the mirror. But you find out she's like over 1,000 years old.
Of course she is.
Of course. She hasn't aged a day. And she pretty much mentions how...
Did she dream of never being old? Is that what happened?
No. She was just trapped in a mirror, but she mentioned how the prince is a reincarnation of the guy that she was in love with 1,000 years ago. And I'm like, of course. Of course. I mean, it's crazy. And
but what I don't understand, I'm a little confused by this, and maybe you could just real quick answer this. So remember you said that you showed the mirror of Ra to the princess in the mirror, and there was a monster.
Yeah, it was the wizard. It
was
the
wizard
guy. Yeah, the evil wizard.
Okay, I just want to make sure because you would think that if there were 2 people there, that the Mirror of Ra would see two people even if they were both bad or good.
Right.
So I was a little confused by that, but okay, continue.
Yeah, so she pretty much tells you, she kind of tells you that there is a boss, because she's over 1,000 years old.
Sure, she knows the world. Go ahead.
Of course. So she says that she remembers someone talking about like the head of the Dread Fiends, but she doesn't quite remember what his name was. So you're like, all right, whoopee. They give you a floodgate key, which now you can open up the floodgate in the real world, so you can travel south with the boat. And in this, you head to a town. It's called Pescado, which is a fishing town. This poor fishing town, and you meet this guy. He's a dick. His name's Rod, of course, because of Fisherman Rod or whatever. And
oh God, I didn't even get that until you said that.
Yeah, I know. And so you find out that this guy's kind of being a dick because he hurt his leg and his arm, and eventually after doing some sneaking around, you find out that he's been helping out a mermaid, and you meet the mermaid, and he wants you. Him and the mermaid are in love, and he wants you to bring the mermaid back to her home.
Now correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that you can go on the ship. This is if you didn't go here, if you went to the cave by itself. This is where the mermaid. You see the mermaid, and then she kind of splashes away.
Right. Yes.
And then you have to do this annoying mini game where you have to follow him.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to mention that, but yeah, this mini game is annoying because you have to hide behind a bunch of stuff. You kind of gotta stand near things, and you just gotta kind of hope like hurry up and go.
And it's not like it's a short distance either. He goes for a long time.
Yeah, it's like 3 screens.
And if you miss once, then you're back to the beginning again.
Right. Yes. It's crazy.
All right. So go ahead. Continue.
He tells you to help out. Unda is her name. Unda. Under and Ova. And you bring her back to her mermaid place, which is near Port Haven. You bring her over there, and then the mermaids give you this thing. It's called Lorelai's Harp, which lets you go underneath the water, and you pretty much this is like the third world you can explore. It's everything under the water, and I would technically count this as another mode of transportation.
I 100% would too. So and I remember being super lost after getting this.
Oh yes. I do not doubt that everyone who's played this game, if they're not using a guide or something at this point, has gotten insanely lost.
Yeah, I don't remember what is it. Yeah, what is it that I don't remember why though.
Because they don't give you any direct. They just, there's a couple people that mention, oh, go see Poseidon. They don't tell you where he is though. Oh, go see him. So pretty much, there's a ton of side questing you can do. There's a sunken ship, which is similar to the sunken ship in Dragon Quest III. I don't know, it just reminds me of it. There you get the ultimate key, where you can pretty much go back and get all kinds of treasure. And you meet Poseidon, and he pretty much tells you that there's this Dread Fiend that lives under the water, and his name is Gracchus, and he wants you to get rid of him. Okay. So
Gracchus is someone that is on one of the other games as well. I believe 7.
Yeah. In 7, and I think 8, maybe. No, maybe not 8.
No, I don't know about that one, but
no, it's a different guy in the very beginning of the game. But so yeah, you pretty much go. He tells you where he is. He's near the Fashion Forge, which is this area in the real world where you can bring your armor to have it like get better style points. And I'll quickly go into the style thing and even the slime arena thing like very quickly. But so we go and we fight Gracchus. He's in an underwater castle, and you pretty much go fight him. And he's one of these enemies. He's kind of dumb, where he just kind of spills the beans on why they sealed away whatever portion they sealed away. He's like, oh, because there's this powerful spell, and we can't have you guys having this powerful spell. So you fight him, you defeat him. He revives this town called Sorceria, and you could go there. But there's also a place called the slime arena where you can go. So let me quickly explain.
Sure.
In the Super Famicom version, you could actually, there's a job class called Monster Master or whatever, or Monster Tamer, where you could actually tame a bunch of different monsters to be in your group. Mainly you would want to recruit a slime, because you have to use the slime in the slime arena, because only slimes can fight in the slime arena. And that counts towards like slime knights, metal slimes, any type of slime can fight in the slime arena. So in the remakes, they pretty much streamlined it to make it that you only recruit slimes, and it's only during certain point parts of the game where you actually like literally talk to slime creatures, and then they'll join your group. So they kind of streamlined that, which is cool. So in the Slimeopolis, you can fight with other slime you have, and you can pretty much gain a lot of really good stuff there. Also, there's another competition that you can do. It's called the Best Dress Contest, and it's a place where you have to go underwater to get to, and pretty much it's kind of like a fashion contest, like with style. This game has style points where each armor has a different type. Each armor has a certain style, and if you equip them in multiple combinations, you can get higher style. And so you go through that contest, and you can win a bunch of prizes. One of the prizes you win is a rug. Now this is kind of important.
Okay. I don't remember the rug. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you kind of need the rug. So you head over, and you can go through the style contest or whatever. I'm not going to explain a ton about it, because it's not 100% vital to the story. So you head over to this new city that is in the dream world. All right, it's called Sorceria, and you find out that this is where Ashlyn actually comes from. She's actually the not the leader, but the lady who's going to be the leader. She's pretty much called the Scion of Sorceria.
Well, not a very responsible leader.
No. You kind of hear what happened to this place. Apparently, they were in the real world at one point, and the Dread Fiends got rid of them. They destroyed their town, and the only way that they could still be around is if they were in the dream world, kind of like Ghost, just kind of like All Trades Abbey kind of thing. So you meet the elder, who gives Ashlyn the magic burst spell, which is one of the best spells. It's a really amazing spell. It takes, I think it's either 2 or 3 of your MP, and it does 1 damage. So if you get a lot of MP in the game, you can actually do a bunch of damage with this spell, but it uses up all your MP, which kind of sucks. And then what ends up happening is she dies, and then Ashlyn pretty much takes control of the town. Well, not in the sense of like as a dictator, but she's like, okay, I'll be the next leader, but I want to defeat the Demon Lord, or the Dread Lord. I think that's what whoever the main boss is, she's like, I gotta defeat him, even though they don't know his name yet.
I was just gonna say, we still don't even know who he is, but they gotta defeat him.
So now at this point, again, is another section where you're like, I don't know what to do. In this town of Sorceria, you gotta talk to some of the old folks, and they actually resurrect the flying carpet, which is that rug that we got a little earlier. And pretty much, boom, that's what? Our fifth mode of transportation?
I believe. Yeah, because you have 2 boats, a bed, the underwater thing, and now this carpet.
Right, so now we can actually fly around similar to the magic bed, but in the real world. So we can fly wherever we want, and once again, like I said, they don't give you any direction. You hear a lot of hints about where to go, but they don't really give you any direction. So at this point, you're going to start collecting some of the legendary gear. And one of the items is the legendary sword, of course. And Terry is in this town. It's pretty much in like the snow village, where apparently everybody has been frozen, and you have to figure out a way to unfreeze them by talking to, like, there's this ice queen, and she apparently was in love with someone in the town or whatever. Anyways, you meet Terry after you tell the ice queen that to stop being such a cold-hearted bee.
Okay.
And she pretty much does that, and then you head up to this cave where the sword is. You get the sword, but it's all rusty, and Terry doesn't want anything to do with it. He's like, this sword, I don't want it. It's just a rusty old piece of crap. So so you have the sword, and then the next thing you have to find is the legendary blacksmith, because apparently you get a legendary sword, you got to get a legendary blacksmith.
Now, was the legendary blacksmith dreamt about?
No, actually, this is all taking place in
Okay.
the real. It's all taking place in the real
Well,
world.
I figured the gathering of the Zenithian stuff was all in the real world, but I was interested particularly about the legendary blacksmith here.
Right, right. And actually, interesting enough, Jim, is this game actually takes place. I'll just spoil it a little bit.
Sure.
But this place is not the legendary equipment isn't even called the Zenithian gear. It's some other armor and weapons that is totally different, but it is actually the Zenithian gear, and I will explain it near the end of the game.
Okay.
Or near the end of when we're done.
Yeah.
So you go to this town where you hear there's the legendary blacksmith. You find out it's a shady town. You find out that the legendary blacksmith is dead, but his daughter's still alive. You convince the daughter to work on fixing the sword. Then you head to this cryptic cave, where as you're going through the game, you'll actually hear people give a whole bunch of clues on how to get through this cave. And you go through the cave and you get yourself the first your first real legendary piece of equipment, which is the shield. And the shield is called the Shield of Ballora. All right.
All right.
So, but it is the Zenithian shield, and I'll explain it at the end.
Sure.
So finally, after collecting the shield and getting the sword, it's being fixed as we speak. You're like, okay, let's figure out how we can unite the prince's dream form and his real form. So you eventually have access to head back to Weaver's Peak, but in the real world, where you find out that monsters are attacking the town, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to defeat all the monsters, but you finally meet your real world self, and he's kind of a pussy. He's a big wuss.
Well,
and
right.
so all these monsters are attacking, and he doesn't want to fight because he's kind of a wuss. And you pretty much have to convince him to merge back in with you so that you can finish off the monsters. It kind of reminds me of something from like Dragon Ball Z or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So eventually you convince yourself to merge. You learn this really cool ability, Zap, and you fight the monsters. And the thing about the reason why, after you're done, it's kind of clear on why you dreamt that you were just this boy living in the mountains, kind of carefree with this lady named Tanya, who's not really your sister. And you find out that it's because you used to have a sister that died when she was young, and so you always dreamt of having your sister. So when you met Tanya, she kind of filled in that void of having a sister, kind of thing.
Okay.
Like after you unite yourself, you head back to Somnia Castle, where like a lot of this backstory takes place. They finally give you some backstory about like. After the king went to sleep and disappeared, after you tried to fight Mudo that first time, the prince went out, and then what ended up happening is he got split, and he always dreamed of his sister and having a sister, so he ended up in Weaver's Peak and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, we can go and collect another piece of legendary gear, where we go to this castle, and we see it's all wrecked, but we head into the dream world where the castle is not wrecked. And so we're talking to these people, and they mention how they're going to summon this monster that's going to take care of the main bad guy. So what ends up happening is they summon this guy, and instead of helping him, they kill the shit out of him, or they kill the shit out of this castle. But you find out that they're hiding the legendary armor. So you head back to the real world where the place is all messed up. You find the secret passage, and you get the legendary armor.
All right.
At this point, you have you have all four except the sword because it's being worked on. You go and get that sword, and then finally you can head over to this place. It's called Storm's Gate Citadel, which looks very familiar if you've played the other Dragon Quest games. It is actually the Zenithian Castle.
All right.
So you head over here, and the bad guys are pretty much in charge. You have to actually fight the castle, which I think is pretty hilarious. You fight the castle, then you fight Terry, who apparently is there because I don't know why he's there. I'm trying to remember why he's there. Terry's one of these guys, he's kind of like a badass, but yet like he's like I don't know. He's kind of stuck up.
I mean,
Right?
they can easily say that he was just still searching for this sword that he wants.
Right.
So he's
And
still looking
so
for a legendary sword. Yeah.
right, he is, and he finds out that you have it after you defeat him, and he'll join your group. And then finally, you fight the fourth Dread Fiend, and his name is Duran. He's kind of reminds me of Rubicante from Final Fantasy IV, where he
Okay.
heals you. He heals you up. He wants a fair fight, so he heals you up before you fight him. You fight him, and he gets beat. And then finally, Cloud's Gate, the castle, rises to the dream world. Okay. And there is where we actually like meet like all the Zenithians there, because there's that you figure out that there's Zenithians. They don't have wings yet, at least I don't think they do. They don't have wings yet, and they have this egg that's there. That the king of Zenithia is like, once this egg hatches, everything's gonna be fine. So we have to protect this egg. And then he pretty much gives you he's like, you have to go and get the legendary Pegasus. That will help you go to the world where the real bad guy is. At this point, they tell you his name is Mortimer.
Okay, finally.
Yeah,
We're probably 3/4 into the game now. We get the main. We know who's the main bad guy.
right. And so Terry has joined your group, and so one thing you do find out, there's an optional area you can go to called Felonia. And if you take Terry and Muriel or Millie with you, you actually find out they're brother and sister. And Millie was sold into slavery or something. She was sold
Wow.
as like a slave, and then Terry had to go and find her. And for some reason, they didn't know each other for like the longest time. But you find out that they're brother and sister, which is kind of cool.
All right.
But here's a question I have for you, Jim.
Yes.
At some point, Millie mentions that she is whole or something, like, so you never meet her, like her other half. It's weird. And I don't know at what point is she like. It's odd.
Do you think she was whole to begin with, and she was never a dream?
I don't know, because the only thing I could think of is Madame Luca might have found her and like made her whole or something. I don't know. I don't know where her other self would be.
Yeah, no, I do remember thinking that being weird too. That nothing was ever connected with her.
Yeah, yeah, that was the only thing. Was like, it was weird why they didn't do anything with that.
Mm.
But anyways, so you gotta go look for this legendary Pegasus. So you head in the Zenithian Castle, or Cloud Gate as they call it. I'm just gonna keep calling it Zenithia. So anyways, you head into this well, which leads you to this tower, which again should look very familiar if you played any of the other ones. It's the Zenithian Tower. So you head up through this tower where you see a horse, a statue of a horse. And so your horse goes and touches that statue, and boom, it becomes the Pegasus. So even the horse
I was amazed by this, by the way. When I saw this, I was like, what? Okay. This is one of those surprises that I was like, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
That this was the legendary horse that I had the whole time.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too, but I just was like, even the horse? Holy God!
Yeah,
you know?
everyone.
Yeah. So from there you get an item where you can actually like make the Pegasus fly and everything whenever you want. And what the Pegasus does, it will fly you to, I guess if you want to technically call it the fourth world, because you know, if you consider you have the real world, the dream world, the Undersea is underneath the dream world, and then the dark world, which or the yeah, I guess you would call it the dark world.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And
I definitely consider it. I definitely consider it 4 then, and
Yeah,
also another flying thing too, technically.
right, yes. So this is the sixth mode of transportation,
Right.
flying. So you get to this fourth world, which is pretty much full of a bunch of people who, it depends on what town you're in, but they all suffer from some sort of vice.
Yeah.
So the first.
By the way, I love this part. This is what I was saying earlier. I really like this whole, like dark world kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of. I kind of like it too, because I like the fact that you got to kind of like help all these people, like regain their energy back. Like each town has people who something is wrong with all of them, and you have to figure out what that one. There's one person in that town that is still right, and you have to help them like fix the whole town, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
So in the first town, it's called the Despair Town or Desparia, and you have to help this old blacksmith guy regain like his vigor or whatever. And so this is like a thing where you have to head back down into the real world. You find this town where he used to live. You get his equipment or his blacksmithing tools. You go back to him, and he pretty much gets like this vim and vigor, and he's like, "All right, cool." And so his I guess enthusiasm or whatnot kind of like spreads throughout the village and makes everybody stop being so sad. So it turns into a regular village and everything. And at this point, it's pretty difficult to walk around this area because you're kind of quote unquote cursed until you finish this town.
Yeah, you have one health point.
Yes, you're kind of cursed. So if you get into like a battle or something, you could be royally screwed. So you and the way to head back into the from the evil world or the dark world is
this is great. I love this. Go ahead, tell people how you get back to the real world.
You go into like this giant, like I would consider like almost a spa. It's like a big
definitely.
Pool. It's like a big pool thing, and you have to head in there. They call it the Lotus Lagoon, and there you have to head into this giant swirling pool thing, and you head into the middle, and there's like a giant hole where you fall down.
Yeah, but you're missing something very important. So people know that this is the way out of this world, but the thing is, this water is so relaxing that they eventually get in the water and like, oh, I'm so relaxed, I don't ever want to leave where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And because there's a pull, and when you do the game, it does. You don't have to touch your controller. It'll just pull you into the four corners like a square. You're the one that has to actively hold the left button down in order to access this, because you're actually trying to get out, where all these other people just forgot or don't care anymore.
Right. Yeah, and that could always be, that's always a little odd. I forgot about the waters being so relaxing. I just remember there was people in there and you had to like maneuver around them, but I forgot like what they said when you talked with them. But yeah, so we finish off Despair Town, then we go to a town that's called Greedmore, and pretty much everyone there is very, very greedy, and you hear about these sages, and they want the sages' treasure. So at this point, you head through this mine, and you find this note that says something about where the sage's treasure is, and you head to this cave where apparently the treasure is. Everybody follows you, and then they get like very murderous and stuff. And so what ends up happening is I think you eventually find the treasure, the actual sage's treasure, and it's just like this little rinky-dink thing that's like nothing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I remember that if you have to choose the right way. Like your goal is they're fighting each other, and your goal is to try to get to this treasure chest at the bottom of the hill, I think it was, first.
Yeah.
And what happens is, though, if you choose the wrong route, I think it like indicates that all of them killed each other.
Yeah.
But if you had the right route, I think, like you said, it's either something small or maybe even nothing at all, if I remember.
Yeah, it might have been nothing.
And then they're like, "Oh, this is lame. I can't believe we fought for all for nothing." And
then that kind of like wipes their greed clean.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're normal. And then if you go back to greed more, there's like this rich guy who's like, okay, now that he's not really greedy, he's like, oh, I have this robe that was from the sage. He gave it to me a while ago. Here, you can have it. And then it's like, boom, we get one of the best robes in the game.
Also, now I'm thinking about it, even before the mountain scene, don't they send you in Greed Town or whatever? Don't they send you to a cave that's like in the north that doesn't have to do with the mountain?
I think they do.
Yeah, because then, like, again, what you do, that might have been the thing that you were thinking of, where it's like people are racing for treasure, but it's a very small thing.
Right.
And then you come back with it. I think that was the competition, is the first one that gets it and comes back wins, and then you do that. And then it leads to and then you get told where the other's treasure is that's in the mountain. And that's why everyone else is like, oh, like, I can't believe so many other people are here. Because the guys fucking told everyone else.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I knew there was something missing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, after the Greedmore, we end up in this a big castle called I forget what the name of it is in the original, but it's called Gallows Moor. And pretty much what happens is you get captured. Everybody there is kind of like, oh man, we're in prison, this, that, and the other. And you find out that one of the sages is there. Apparently, there's two sages, Benjamin and Isaac. In the remake, I forget what, or no, in the original, I forget. I think one of them's called Kermit, and one of them's called, I think it's still Benjamin. But anyways, you find out about these two sages. I don't know why they added these guys so late in the game. Like, it seems like they're really important, and just to add them in, like, literally the final 3 places, it's weird, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you go through all this stuff where you have to try and escape, and pretty much, you have to fight off the leader there, who in the original game I think was called Akbar, which I think was pretty cool because it's a Star Wars thing. But anyways, you fight him and you defeat all the enemies. You finally get out. You have to dress up as guard. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want to get into it because again, streamlining. So you actually meet one of the sages there who's like, help my brother. He's to the north. You got to help him out. If we can join our power together, we can help you defeat Mortimer. So you head north. You go into this dungeon where you see the other sage. I forget if it was Kermit or Benjamin. It doesn't really matter. It's the other sage.
Right.
And he is being tortured pretty much by these two monsters who are literally going in his dreams and tell him his brother's dead, this, that, and the other are all dead, all your friends, this, that, and the other, they're all dead. And he won't break. The sage won't break. So you end up fighting these two monsters and defeating them and saving both sages. And then finally they meet together and they shoot down, because apparently Mortimer's castle is like on top of this giant pillar, this big pillar thing, and
right.
And they shoot his castle down so you can get to it, and they get rid of, like, I guess there was a protective barrier or whatever around it. So they do this for you so that you can go in and defeat this guy. So now we go inside the castle. Honestly, pretty uneventful. There's not really a lot that goes on in his castle other than a couple of tricky stages. So finally,
I agree with that. I remember that being the case too.
So finally we get to Mortimer, and honestly, he doesn't look that menacing. He's this old dude. He's like sitting, like hovering he's very old. He doesn't look menacing. So you take him on, you defeat him, obviously, the first stage. There's always more than one with the final boss. He turns into this big hulking monster, and you fight him there, you kind of destroy him, and then he turns into a big head with 2 hands where you have to defeat that as well. Again, obviously you're going to win, hopefully. And after you defeat him, pretty much what happens is he was the thing that was keeping the dream world alive or whatever.
Now wait, do you mean the dream world or the world that we're in?
Pretty much this world, the dark world is destroyed.
The dark world, yeah, you said dream.
No, the dream world as well. Pretty much what ends up happening is he's like...
I don't remember this, okay.
Yes, so he was pretty much like, I'm the one who's keeping the dream world alive. If I'm gone, the dream world would disappear, which is kind of sad because, everything pretty much people will stop dreaming and they won't need that world. So what ends up happening is things slowly start to disappear. So you go to all these different places, just like in any Dragon Quest game. You head to like the Zenithian Castle, you head to all these places, and at the end you're in Somnia, you're having a party, and Ashlyn kind of leaves the group and she disappears.
Yeah, and she never existed, right?
No, she never ended up existing. See, the thing about it is she there are some parts of the game where you can I guess she kind of has a thing for the hero or whatever.
Okay.
And I guess he might have had a thing for her. Anyway, she kind of disappears. But the cool thing is that the dream world, everything disappears except the Zenithian Castle, where you see Ashlyn hanging out with the Zenithian King and the dragon, and they're all talking about how this egg, I'm sorry, I kind of spoiled it there, but yeah, this egg pretty much is the hope that the dream world has, and so she pretty much helps it like hatch, and it ends up, to my personal opinion, is that dragon ends up becoming the Zenithian dragon, which makes this the first game of the Zenithian Trilogy.
Right, which we had talked about it on many podcasts ago. Like we had talked about how 1, 2, and 3 are a clear trilogy, and then you had mentioned that, oh well, 4, 5, and 6 not as clear, but still a trilogy. And I was like, you know what, I think I might be able to put that together, but I'll revisit that when we get there. And here we are, and yeah, it's pretty much just as you said. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I realized it. Yeah.
So the hero is essentially the first the Zenithian hero or whatever, because they end up saying that all the gear that he owned was the legendary equipment. It was the Zenithian gear and all that stuff. So pretty much the ending happens. Terry and Millie hang out for a little bit, and then Terry goes off on his own. Hassan or Carver, he ends up going back to becoming a carpenter. Nevin, he ends up becoming the leader of the village. And then who am I missing? Amos.
Yeah, well, Amos was an optional person though.
Yeah,
too,
and
so.
I think he just ends up going back to his home. So, pretty much as the ending goes by, you see Terry visit a spot that we've already been to, and I just want to quickly go over like the
Sure.
bonus thing because it's
Yeah,
kind
no
of
problem.
cool.
I don't know if I even know about the bonus thing, so go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much after the end of the game, you could save your game, and you go back to where Terry was hanging out. I think it was in the Cave of Amor, and you get this item. It's called the Metal Babble Book or whatever, where you can end up becoming a liquid metal slime, like you can learn all of his abilities or whatever. So there's a dungeon that you can go to, which leads you through similar areas that you've already been to, but at the end of the thing, you can actually fight. What is it? You can actually fight the. You know, I was telling you there was that one castle that summoned a demon that was going to try and defeat Mortimer,
Yes.
but it just destroyed the castle instead. You actually go to that scene and you go talk to the guy. His name is Nocturnus, right?
Hmm.
He's probably arguably one of the hardest bosses in Dragon Quest history.
Oh wow.
You go there and you got to fight him, and you have. He's very tough, very very tough. And what you have to do is you have to beat him within 20 turns. If you can beat him within 20 turns, he will actually grant you a wish, but they don't really give you the option to have a wish. He pretty much says, I'm going to help you defeat the Demon Lord. So he automatically warps you to where Mortimer is. And what ends up happening is he takes on Mortimer, and he kicks the shit out of him. He wipes the floor with him,
Wow.
like, completely. It's unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely check out a video of Nocturnus versus Mortimer, because Mortimer tries everything in his arsenal to hurt Nocturnus, and he just destroys him. It is unbelievable. It's so funny just to see how like you might have had trouble with Mortimer, but then he just kind of like blows wind at him and just destroys the hell out of him.
Hmm.
And so he's like, okay, I defeated this guy. Your wish is done. So he just warps you out of there, and the ending still happens very similar, except at the end of the game, Terry pretty much goes to fight Nocturnus, which I think he's going to lose because there's no way he'd beat him. There's no way he'd beat him one-on-one. So pretty much, I think that's it.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
good time. We definitely made we said it was going to go long, and it definitely has.
Yeah.
But we got through the whole thing. Was there anything that made? Because we do have a little time. Is there anything that you were like wanted to elaborate more on that you didn't think that maybe you would get a chance to? Because here's your chance for like the next 10 minutes.
Right. Not really anything that I could think of off the top of my head. Honestly, the bonus dungeon is called the Fungeon, just like in Dragon Quest IV. It pretty much like has like similar any similar areas that you've been to and you go through it. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. You do get to meet some of the heroes from the previous Dragon Quests in the Fungeon. There's a point where you go to it's called Weaver's Peak, but they call it Reaper's Peak because it's supposed to be like the death version of Life Cod. And so you can meet Sancho from Dragon Quest V.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
You can meet the two kids from Dragon Quest V. You can meet Ragnar. You can meet Tulun. And then there was one other person, I forget who, but you can meet them. It's kind of cool. And trying to think of if there's anything else. So story wise, I think it's all right. I just think that like middle third really is so like it's not focused enough that it kind of loses people, especially like okay, even with the boat, it's like okay, there's only certain places you can go, but when you go underwater and then you get overwhelmed with the amount of things you can do, that's a lot of stuff, a
Mm,
lot of treasure hunting, and
yeah.
I could see a lot of people being turned off by doing by that part, but I think overall, I think this game is pretty good. Again, it's probably like if you break up each Dragon Quest game into three tiers, where it's like your top three favorite, the middle three, and then the bottom three. I would have to say that this is like on the top of the bottom tier. You know what I mean?
Okay,
It's
that's fair.
like Dragon Quest 2 hands down is the bottom of the bottom because it's so
Okay,
hard and
right.
difficult. But
With
this
that
one,
road that you love.
oh yeah. But overall there's a lot of great things about the game. Like I love the fact that Infinite Bag, the music's really good. I like that they actually decided to do monster animations, and even when you attack there are different animations for like all your various abilities. It's just not the monster blinking when you hit it or whatever.
Right. Sure. No, I get that. Um.
So it definitely had like some jumping off points where it's like, okay, we're still improving, but there's still a lot more to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like again, there's definitely certain aspects that I can say, looking back at it. Okay, so this started here. More specifically, like the class system, which I
Hmm.
don't think I even realized until we did this show that this is where that actually began. But like I said, for me, oh excuse me, for me, it was a solid beginning, and like I said, I really liked the Dark Realm stuff.
Yeah.
I think for me though, it was the middle that really kind of was like, ah, this isn't great, and because I would have to say like the Dark Realm was my top, and then like the beginning, and then the middle, mostly because again, it's an open world, but there's a difference between this kind of open world and let's say a Skyrim open world where
Right.
you can, even though like there's ways that they'll tell you even if it's not your main quest. I'm talking about Skyrim. Even if it's not your main quest, it's still something that you understand that you can do. This didn't give any kind of indication of even side quests like you mentioned.
Right.
Do you have to talk to like barely any people were being talked to about like wherever you're supposed to go in the game, I
Right.
mean.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't even mention some of the side quests you can do. One other thing that now I'm just thinking about
Sure.
off the top of my head is Terry. I have to mention Terry in this game because you meet him a bunch of times throughout the game, and then finally he joins your adventure or your party like nearly at the end of the game. And sure, he comes with a lot of interesting abilities, but at that point, if you're playing like I do, all my other characters are already customized so much that like I don't even ever play with Terry.
Right.
I feel like you get him too late in the game that that it's like he's not worth using because like with Carver I'll have the exact same abilities plus some. Amos same thing. Even my hero will have this very similar stuff. And it's like I don't need another character who I'm not going to use.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but interestingly enough, Terry is probably the breakout star from this game.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He
He and
appeared in Dragon Quest Heroes, and from what I understand, and because I'm looking this up right now, is he actually got his own game, which
yeah,
I
he was
didn't
the
know
main
about.
he is the main character in he is the main character in Dragon Warrior Monsters, the very first Monsters
Yeah,
game.
Terry's Wonderland it's called, by the way.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a game that features Terry and Millie years before the events of Dragon Quest Six.
Yep, it happens. I've let's played that game, and it actually happens. He's a little kid, and him and Millie ends up getting taken away by a monster, and then this other monster comes to Terry and says, "If you help me, we can rescue your sister." So you pretty much help him out, and eventually rescue his sister.
Hmm.
But you go through this whole. It's pretty interesting because you go through this whole story, and you meet this mysterious swordsman throughout the game, who eventually, by the end of the game, spoiler alert, I'll
Hmm.
give you a second, is actually Terry from the future. He's
Oh,
helping out Terry as a kid. It's kind of interesting, and
that is interesting.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I do have to admit, Terry is one of the better characters in Dragon Quest Heroes. Man, he's got
Yeah.
some really amazing abilities.
When are we getting Dragon Quest Heroes 2? Actually, I heard that probably is going to happen.
Yeah,
For the States.
I believe we are going to be getting it because it's coming out for the Nintendo Switch. So I can't see any reason why they wouldn't bring it out to the States for like the PS4 or whatnot.
But Heroes 1, yeah, I was going to say Heroes 1 was on the PlayStation 4. Why isn't that one being put on? I guess I'm biased because I have a PlayStation 4 already, so.
I believe they're packaging Heroes 1 and 2 is going to be on the Switch, like as a package, like as one single game apparently or something.
Right. Okay. And then, are we ever going to get Dragon Quest 10?
I have no idea. Seriously, if it does come out, Jim, I believe it'll more than likely it will come out for the PC, because it.
Oh,
seems
see,
like
I was going to say I think it'd be more likely come out for the Switch.
It could. I could see that too, but I think it already came out for the Wii in Japan, and I don't know if it's on the Wii U in Japan, like if you could play it like cross platforms or whatnot. But I think it will end up coming out for the PC if anything.
All right, so we're about to wrap this up in a few minutes. I also just want to real quick talk to you since we're talking general Dragon Quest and have a few extra minutes. You ever think about giving that Dragon Quest Builders a shot?
Yeah, I actually own it and I played it and
Oh,
I
it's
really
out.
liked
I
it.
didn't even know it was out. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
I played the demo.
I like it. If you honestly, I don't like Minecraft, but I played this game and I'm loving it. I just love it. From what I've heard, Minecraft is a little less focused. Like, and this game is more goal oriented. So like, okay, so like one of the things would be like, okay, learn how to make bricks so you can make a wall and protect the town, because pretty much it's really cool because it takes place in Dragon Warrior 1 in that world in Alfgard, but it's an alternate world where
I love that. That's my favorite thing about the game, by the way.
Where the hero said, "Yeah, I know. It's one of my favorite things about the game too, where he's like, "Yeah, you know what, Dragon Lord, I'll be your buddy. Let's split half this world up." So pretty much, it's an alternative world, and it's like, I just think that's one of the coolest aspects of the game.
Yeah, that they went back all the way back to like Dragon Warrior 1 to come up with a situation for basically 2017.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm iffy on it. Right now, I had a bunch of games franchises that came out recently that I've been fans of for years. So I'm kind of like, oh, all right, I've already spent too much on games. Like, I bought Dragon Quest 8, and then Kingdom Hearts 2.8 came out, and then a new Tales. Like the Tales series on PlayStation 4,
yeah.
a new Tales game. Like, Jesus Christ, guys, you never release all around the same time. You're really hurting my wallet right now.
Yeah, it's a tough time. It's a tough time for a JRPG gamer right now, I think.
And then I think the South Park game is going to be coming out soon, which I'm a fan of that. And then I saw like all these it's weird because it's all the franchises that I had followed. Mass Effect is coming out in March. I've been a fan of Mass Effect. That's another one coming out. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
For me, but
well,
so,
Jim, if you honestly, when the Dragon Quest Builders game comes down in price, like if it's $20, I would recommend for $20.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna give it a shot, even mostly because I'm a Dragon Quest fan. So like at the very least, but yeah, I think it's not one of those ones I pick up right now, but maybe down the line, I give it a try.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get some final plugs from you, and then we'll head out of here.
All right, so you can my main channel. If you look me up on YouTube, type in Kenshin1913, you'll find me there. You type in Kenshin1913 on Facebook and Twitter, you'll find me there. And I think that's pretty much it. I have a Patreon. I also have a Twitch. Just look up Kenshin1913. Anything, mostly anything you find if you Google it will be me. So.
All right, very good, and thank you everyone for listening. And like I said, we're weeks away from the return of Let's Discuss Pro Wrestling Albums, but also, more importantly, right after Let's Discuss Pro Wrestling Albums, then we go with Now That's What I Call Podcasting as the main show starting May 7th, and I should have some more hype and news in the upcoming weeks in regards to that. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Jim Boy Star podcast. Please visit the website www.thatspodcasting.com, where you can get the latest news on all of the latest upcoming episodes of this show, and you could download the archives of previous episodes, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher for the latest episodes coming right to you right when they're released. You can also follow me at www.twitter.com/JimBoyStar. This is my story, and thank you for being a part of it.